Hello paper crafters, welcome to another Design with Jo video. I'm Joanne Rogers, a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Central Alberta, Canada, and I've been designing with you in mind since 1999. Today I want to share some tips for detailed coloring with your blends. So the Stampin' Blends are fabulous markers. They're alcohol-based markers from Stampin' Up! They're relatively new, and they have a bullet tip and they have a brush tip. And they are great for creating blendable color like I have on this card. So this set is the Animal Outing set. It's new in the 2018-19 catalog. I think it's so cute. It's got a kangaroo with a koala bear and a little parrot with a rhino and then a giraffe, and there's a little frog here. So I've chosen to use the frog with the leaf and the giraffe, and that together we make a great pair. And these are really quite detailed, these leaves. And so you might shy away from using your blends with them for this reason. I'm going to show you exactly what I've done here. So on the first one that I did, you'll notice that that frog is really not very pretty. And they're also in the leaves, it's quite muddied almost. The giraffe is not so bad, but he's got a little larger area. But even outside the edges right here, you can see I don't like that look. So I've played around and came up with, I think I've got 8 different tips for you on how you can get a better looking result than this. So my first tip. You have to use your Memento ink. You do not want to use your StazOn ink because that is an alcohol ink, and these are alcohol. So that is just going to completely blend, and you'll get a really, really muddy. Where I have a little bit of mud, you would have a lot of mud. Second tip is let your images dry. Stamp them and let them dry more than just a couple seconds. So maybe dry them in advance, even a couple minutes is great, but what I did is I gave them a shot with my heat tool, and that just seems to set the ink really well. But I found when I was playing that thick Whisper White gave me a better result. So if you look at this one here, the Whisper White, you can see that I'm really not outside of the lines very much. There's not a lot of blurring going on with my Memento. This one is on Shimmery White, and although I do like it and I love Shimmery White for watercolor, I think it's not quite as great for your blends. So you can maybe tell that there's some diffused color in here. It just doesn't seem to blend out quite as well with the alcohol inks as it does on the Whisper White. So I'm going to start with the leaves and the frog, and I always start with my lightest color first. And what we're going to use, although I mostly use my brush tip, getting into these small areas, I found that I use my bullet tip a lot more. So that's another tip for you, is use that bullet tip. So I'm going to lay down a color of yellow, and I'm not going to try and get it right to the outside edges. So there's another tip. Go only to the, get the middle sort of covered with color. And I'm putting yellow down because I want to create a little bit more limey leaves than what the Old Olive Green is going to give us. We have some more new greens coming in soon with the catalog. They just are not available for use yet. I cap my Stampin' Blends all the time. I'm going to go in with my green now. So this is still fairly wet, but I'm going to go in and give a little bit of my green. And again, I'm not going right to the edge. And the reason why is that this alcohol ink continues to blend out even when you're finished touching it and coloring it. So I just wanted that yellow down to create a slightly different green. And now I am very lightly, I am hardly using any pressure at all as I am coloring. And the color is going down very nicely. It's blending right into the yellow because that still is not completely dry. Even though it does dry very quickly, it's not completely dry. And I'm using very light strokes, hardly any pressure, and I'm working fairly quickly. And I'm not trying to go right to the outside edges. I'll get to the outside edges eventually. I'm going to go with my dark Old Olive now, and here I'm just going to dot on the color. I am not going to lay it down in strokes like I just did for the leaves. I'm just going to dot on the color, and I'm only dotting where the stamp is telling me there are darker images. So on the leaf, there are black marks here from the memento pad. That's the stamp itself. And we're just going to dot on the color. I'm very carefully dotting on the color as we get close in this very small spot. So now I'm going to go back in with my light color, and I'm going to blend that out, still using my bullet tip. So now I'm going to go a little bit more to the tip, but I'm only dotting color on the tip. And I could have gone in with a little bit darker, and I still might go in there. So I am hardly using any pressure at all. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're using your blends, is you will be able to lay down your color without pressing very hard. And especially on that brush tip end, as you're using it, you want to use light pressure. So I'm going to leave that for now. Oh, I got to go back to my frog though. And I'm going to just fill in, and I'm just dotting on the color there. And that's just filling in the spots. And I realize I didn't color in his little eyeballs here. And I'm just going to dot on the color there with yellow. I'm not going to make those green. I'm going to give a little more yellow here on his body, I think. Let that blend out. Now for the branch, I'm going to go in with a little bit of the light crumb cake first. Again, I'm going to use the bullet tip for that. So back here, I've got a little bit more space. I can use strokes. But as soon as I get into these really small areas, I am just going to tap on my color. Because I want my branch to be a little more brown than green. So I'm tapping it on, and I am leaving space there. Now I'm going to go in with my darker color, and I'm just going to tap it on as well. And I'm going to let that blend out. I'm going to go back in with my lighter color. Now I'm going to go in with a little bit of green too, which is the lighter color. And I'm going to add just a little bit of green. I'm dotting and pulling my color just slightly, and I am hardly putting any pressure at all on that tip. And the color is blending by itself. Okay, so I've pretty much done the frog and the leaves. I'm going to come back probably and just add some detail color to that. I'm going to go and do the giraffe now. Notice right on this one, it's not awful, but there is a tiny little bit of color outside the edge. And that is where our color blender comes in. Sorry, our color lifter. And the color lifter is clear. It also has two tips, just like all the rest of the markers. But the sole purpose of this is to take color away. And so when I'm going to try and push that color back into the leaves and get it back to white as much as I can. So again, a very, very light touch. And I am just going and touching that color. I'm not going into the black, or trying not to go into the black. It may take a couple tries to do that. You did pick up some color, so just take that tip and very lightly rub it onto your scratch paper, your graph paper, or your grid paper rather. Let that dry, and letting it dry is what's actually going to allow you to get not this. So even though I was very, very, very careful here, and I did go in several times, I was not successful at getting rid of the color of the blended out memento pad here. So that's dried already. Go back in. I am hardly putting any pressure at all. You want to very sparingly use your color lifter. Okay, so that's actually created a little better look to me. There's less coming outside the edges of the black. Here's everything that we need to finish the card. So this card is a square card, and my Mango Melody, I'm not sure if it's my favorite of the new catalog, but I sure love this color. It's so bright. And this piece is 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, and it's scored at 4 1/4. We've got a piece of basic black that is 3 7/8 by 3 7/8 that I've already glued down there. And then a piece of my old olive that I've run through the Petal Burst embossing folder. And we're going to use it not on the side that is embossed, we're going to use it on the side that is debossed. I thought it had a lot of interest there. So I've run that through already, and I'm going to glue it down with my liquid glue. And the reason for using liquid glue is that you've got a bumpy surface here, and so your snail is not, not going to work quite as well. So take your liquid glue and use that, or if you have fast fuse, go ahead and use that. So this just has a tiny little border. Lay that down. I'm going to glue this guy on, I'm going to put this guy on with some dimensionals. And the last thing I'm going to do is take the greeting, and so I've already stamped. This is still the also the memento on Thick Whisper White, and this is a 1 1/4 circle punch, and this is 1 3/8 inch circle punch out of the old olive. I've put dimensionals on the back. I want it just to pop up just a tiny little bit. And you're going to put that on there. I just thought it looked a little bit better to have a little bit of green on there compared to just stamping directly onto the white. And the very last thing we're going to do is take our pokey tool, so our paper piercing tool, and you're going to pick up one rhinestone and just set it on the top. So there's your card. I'm going to now run through the tips. There are 8 different tips that I have. So first, you want to make sure that you have your memento ink, and you want to let it dry well and give it a shot with your heat tool if you want to rush it just a little bit more. It's better, I've found, if you use Thick Whisper White cardstock. Use the bullet tip end, so that's the end that has the narrow line on it compared to the thick line of your Stampin' Blends. You don't color right to the image outline, not at first anyway. You wait, and then you're going to finalize that later. Tap on the color in a small space. Be as light as you possibly can using that tip, and use your color lifter sparingly. And again, you want to use that really, really lightly to push a little bit of color back. So I hope you like that project. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you have some tips and have some success using your Stampin' Blends. Don't shy away from them with your smaller images, because they really are a wonderful way to get color onto those images. So thanks for joining me today. If you do like the video, please consider liking it below and subscribing to my YouTube channel. I post regularly as well at www.designwithjo.ca. I would love to have you join in, and if you need a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada, I would love to be your gal. Thanks very much. Have a great day.